walked over here tonight, and I'm really glad that I did because it's a good walk. Got to see there's a lot of new stuff down here. You're doing a good job with the area. Yeah. Couple of observations though. Did the city just completely give up on the streets? Yes. Yeah, we're halfway to cobblestone now. You just give it a couple more years and we'll rename the entire city Potwood. Other thing that happened was as I was walking by this guy who I noticed before I got there, he was sitting in front of an office building and had like 3 takeout containers in front of him, and when he saw me, he was like, "Hey, yo, you want some food? Got some food over here." Like, does that work on anybody? Like, also, on a scale of 1 to 10, how homeless do I look right now? Okay. It's not really a 1 to 10 thing. Now, I imagine you're shocked too. You're probably like, I bet this guy's been on a receiving end of a buttload of appreciative looks from female cashiers while he was purchasing maxi pads for his wife. You'd be absolutely correct in that strangely specific assumption. Now, obviously, these weren't looks that were like, "Oh yeah, I'd like to make some bad decisions with that guy." I mean, because after all, I look like I might be a dropout from a witchcraft and wizardry community college. And I had always assumed that these appreciative looks could be chalked up to the cashier having had a man who wouldn't do such a thing for his lady because of fragile masculinity or some bullshit. But having been a witness to this phenomenon for many years, I've realized these are also not looks that say, "That's what a real man looks like." They're more akin to the look that you give somebody who's trying to rock a stylish pair of pants that's a couple sizes too small. A look that says, "That's brave. Good for you." I equate the task to trying to solve a 5-star Sudoku puzzle. Because every once in a while, I'll solve one. My reaction every time is, "Oh, hells yeah." Somebody hooked me up with a Mensa card already. Did you hear that ding? I just leveled up.
Somebody hooked you up with a moose knuckles.
And then, I think I'm like Russell Crowe in A Beautiful Night. Then I fail the next 5 that I attempt, and I'm like, "Oh no, I'm like Russell Crowe singing in Les Miserables." The problem is that there are way too many options in the realm of sanitary napkinry, and they all use advertising buzzwords that I don't understand. It's like trying to pick out the perfect tube of toothpaste in the toothpaste aisle if you've never had a mouth. Like, well, I guess Ultra is better than Super. Ultraman be like Superman without the whole kryptonite thing. I think I'm gonna go with Ultra. Except these don't have wings. They have to have wings. Where the hell are the wings at? Ah, hallelujah, we've discovered the aviary. And I see we're throwing around the word heavy now. Things are already pretty tense at home. She's been complaining about feeling bloated all day. I'll be damned if I bring home a package with the word heavy boldly written upon it. Oh, look. H-E-B got into the game. Can't get wrong with H-E-B brand. Plus, wife's pretty frugal. Might score a few extra bonus points by, oh no. Seems they have a slightly different strategy when it comes to the whole Thai restaurant menu item strength rating system. They're going with a 3-alarm as opposed to a 4-alarm chili situation. Now, it stands to reason that the store brand 3 is equivalent of a major brand 4, but what does that make the menstrual metric 2? Is that like a 2.5 standard scale? Maybe I'll just go with overnight. That's like a fire and forget missile, right? Actually kind of resembles a fire and forget missile because I wandered into the tampons. Eventually I make the most confident decision I can. And I go and I get my appreciative look from the cashier. Depending on the urgency of my quest, maybe a thermal printed version of the Bible from the CVS. When I get home and I say, "How did I do?" She says, "God damn it, you got me adult diapers again?" And I'm like, "Why do they put them right next to each other? There's already an aisle for diapers. It's the baby aisle. It should be baby, toddler, really old baby." And then I don't get to do the shopping for a few months and everybody wins. Now, my wife carried and gave birth to my child. She gave me my favorite new person in the world. She doesn't deserve this. I'm out there buying her geriatric Pampers with her own money because I'm a stay-at-home dad. And you're absolutely right not to applaud that. Carried and gave birth to my child, and in return I gave her the opportunity to solely provide for the family. My biggest complaint as a stay-at-home dad is that I don't know what I'm most proud of. The fact that I found a legitimate, guilt-free way to be gainfully unemployed? Or the fact that I actually slept my way into a position? Now, my daughter is 3, so I'm running out of time on the old gravy train. Gonna start school soon, and it's not just that I don't want to go back to work, but I've been burning bridges all over town. Because in my spare time, I've been racking up job interviews. Why would I do that? It's objectively awful, interviewing for a job, right? But if you factor in that I don't need/want the job, and that it's 100% a waste of their time, it's amazing. Completely flips the power dynamic. Sometimes I let them off the hook pretty early on. I come in, I do the handshake, I take a seat, I let them get a few lines into their opening spiel before I fake a phone call. They're like, "Oh, shit, shoot. I meant to turn this off. How embarrassing. Let me just do that right. Actually, I have to take this. Are you a robot? Are you a robot? I know the laws, man. You gotta tell me if you're a robot." It's a person. Uh-huh. 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 Oh, that's fantastic news. Yeah, I can start on Monday. No, thank you for the opportunity. You have no idea what kind of shitholes I've been interviewing at. Speaking of which, can I put you on hold for just a second? Do you validate? But most of the time, it's worth it to keep them on the hook for longer because then you get to answer all those dumbass questions that I like to ask. Like, what's my greatest weakness? God, I hate this one. So hard. My inability to realize my own character flaws. No, I got it. It's probably my inability to vote. On account of all the felonies. I'm guessing your greatest weakness is the veracity of your background checks. Or where do I see myself in 5 years? Oh, wow. First of all, what an original and thought-provoking question. I bet you're the office cut-up that's always like, "Hey, you having fun today?" Let's see. In 5 years, I probably see myself pretty much in the same place. Like this very office. Except I'm gonna be sitting in that chair. Does it have good lumbar support? Maybe I'll keep the chair. And you're gonna be sitting in this chair begging to get back into the company. And I'll be going over your references from the court-mandated sexual harassment and sensitivity course you took. Not exactly top of your class, Deborah. Now get the hell out of my office. And most of the time, I take my kid along with me, and so she's running around the office throwing handfuls of garden sand around and putting practice putt-putt golf balls in her mouth. And while I look them in the eye and I say that the greatest asset that I can bring to this company is my ability to multitask. And when they ask me why in the hell I brought a child to the interview, I'm like, isn't it take your kid to work day? No? Well, remember when I told you on the phone I was going to bring in a few extra references with me? How's Daddy doing, kiddo? And then she gives me a choreographed high five, and I say out loud to myself, power move. And then she says something along the lines of, do you validate? We have fun. Sometimes I have more of the fun. Like I've stopped correcting her grammatical errors because they're funny to me. I let her walk around in society thinking that the plastic container the kids use to take food to school is called a lunchbox. That's a better name. She thinks the phrase is "you're driving my crazy." It's not correct, but if you think about it, it's not exactly wrong either. I like it better. I've started saying it that way because I don't want to lose that one. She's recently included the slang term suck into her vocabulary. But she's got down, this sucks. But it gets interesting when she tries to conjugate the verb. Like she was playing with this kid the other day who was really bossy. And afterwards she was like, that boy was really sucking me out. The overall experience is pretty great. It's like you're living with a diminutive version of that trope character from a lot of 90s comedy movies. Like their whole shtick was that they were an immigrant who was way more confident in their ability with English than they had a right to be. And I'm like, oh, you are seriously driving my crazy. And you have no permit, and yet all over town you drive my crazy. You're really sucking me out right now. It's not all fun, obviously. Like I now get pink eye periodically. You know what sucks about getting pink eye as an adult? Yeah, there's absolutely no upside. At least when you were a kid, that was a guaranteed week out of school. It's the holy grail of sick days. When you got back from your little nasty ass vacation and everyone's asking what happened to you, you could just tell them all you had mono. And then all of your schoolmates are looking at you like, damn, this kid makes out. But as an adult, you have to go out into the world, and then every social interaction you have, people are like, damn, this grown-ass man got poop in his eye. Never mind the fact that 95% of all pink eye cases are viral, and of the 5% that are bacterial, that fecal matter is just one of the many causes. Because at some point in all of our lives, we heard it could be caused by getting poop in the eye, and we were like, wait, what? That's the only way people get pink eye. Gross. I'm not even sure why we call it pink eye. Might as well call it brown eye. Everybody's thinking it. You're all thinking it right now. Like, this guy wears glasses, and he still can't keep poop out of his eyes. Luckily, pink eye, or conjunctivitis, as nobody calls it, Pretty easy to see how Pink Eye became the street name. Who wants to admit to another person that they suffer from conjunctivitis? You tell somebody that, they'd be like, oh my God, man, I'm sorry. How many months do you have before your junk falls off? Luckily, Pink Eye only lasts for up to several weeks. So most of a month, wandering around all squinty-eyed like Poop Eye the Sailor Man. Now, I have a toddler and 2 dogs at home, which is a lot of extracurricular excrement that I deal with on a day-to-day. It's painting a pretty weak rebuttal for your assumptions that I got caca in my peepholes. When you assume, you make an ass out of you and I. Because I wash my hands like a surgeon. It's conditioning. I was in the service industry for over a decade. I can't help myself. I wash my hands like they always just murdered a small family. I wash my hands like I walk around all day high-fiving the homeless. Wish I don't. Be nice if I did. The point is, I can't figure out how my kid keeps getting poop in my eye. I know it's her. She's probably doing it on purpose. She's got a really sick sense of humor. Her favorite song is Old MacDonald. You ever notice that everything in that song takes place in the past tense? Something unfortunate happened. Old MacDonald had a farm. All we know about him is that he was old. Did he die? On that farm, he had a cow. Did he get hoof and mouth disease? And die? Resulting in yet another bad financial year for McDonald, so the bank foreclosed on the land, and now he's homeless and woefully unskilled for a socioeconomic climate that no longer revolves around traditional farming. Whatever the case, E-I-E-I-O has kind of a celebratory context to it. What kind of a son of a bitch was this McDonald that parents are joyfully singing about his tribulations to their children? How'd he become the scourge of the countryside? Hardly he could have been swallowing up surrounding farms, using crooked business dealings and strong arm tactics. He only had one of every type of animal, for crying out loud. They seem to run roughshod all over his property. They're here, there, everywhere, making animal sounds. Did it drive him insane? So that he could be found tilling the fields wearing overalls made out of all the unfortunate motorists who happen to break down next to his shitty farm. Saying things like, would you plow me? I'd plow me. Or maybe E-I-E-I-O is just the closest that vowel-laden onomatopoeia can get to the sounds of a salt-of-the-earth geriatric, making sweet, non-consensual love to his animals. It would explain why I only had one of every type. So I couldn't tell stories. I'm not condoning his conduct, I'm just bearing witness to his wicked wisdom. Pretty hard to get a hashtag #MooToo campaign off the ground when there's only one cow. Did I say that was my daughter's favorite song? I think that's my favorite song. A really good song. Now, speaking of animals and how good of a dad I am, do you know what didn't help me whatsoever to prepare for fatherhood? Having pets first. Didn't help at all. Fur babies, starter kids, these are offensive terms. There's a number of reasons that these comparisons are bad. But the most striking to me is the amount of risk involved. Maybe a bad dog, maybe it bites somebody, dog gets put down, that's sad. Victim has a valid fear of dogs afterwards. Bad human? We can't even enjoy the internet anymore. I mean, I'd compare it to horseshoes and hand grenades, but those are both things made by humans that can cause grievous bodily harm only when used by humans. Wow, I really bummed you guys out here. Don't get me wrong, I love my dogs. Dog people? I love my dogs more than you love your dogs. I could literally hear your buttholes tighten when I said that. Trust me, I do. You're like, no way, my dog is my best friend. I take my dog everywhere. I take my dog park, take him to the dog park every day. I take him to human parks. I take him out to restaurants and bars where he enhances the enjoyment of all of my friends from under the table that is now his anxiety fortress. Like, I think some dogs could probably kill it in that scenario. They're out there, where afterwards the couples are driving home and they're talking to each other in the car and they're like, can I just be the one to say it? I cannot wait to hang out with that dog again. They're invited to the Christmas party. Almost all of those dogs live in a Disney movie. Like maybe this is kind of regional. Austin is completely dog crazy. They are allowed everywhere. They're allowed in the Lowe's and the Home Depot for some reason. An allowance which is taken extreme advantage of. Like half of all customers have a dog along with them just because. Which is great, because imagine that you're going back and forth between the 3 aisles of hardware looking for that one thing you need and you can't find it anywhere and it's adjacent in purpose to all these other things. Supernaturally elusive. You found it before, you're starting to lose it. What's a better way to pull yourself out of your internal fit than to look down into the wet eyes of a shit you just stepped in? In a store. Now, I haven't actually done that, but I've come way closer than I ever should in a store. And like most of these dog people, when I see them, they don't even have anything in their cart. I'm pretty much convinced that the cart is just part of a disguise. For the fact that 10 minutes beforehand, they were at home and like, hey buddy, you wanna go for a walk? And then they got into the SUV and they went to Lowe's and they got out and it's like, okay buddy, you do your business and mommy's going to window shop her fantasy kitchen. Man, oh man. You guys are not on board with this dog story. Let me explain. All right? So, one time this other father, he told me about this different dad that we both knew, had confided in him that while he loved his oldest child, that he did not like him. This was amazing to me in a few ways, because I could not stand that kid. And so this was justification in a way that made me feel even guiltier about it, because I didn't know that could happen with your offspring. I had figured they came from your own body, so you would just take deep breaths of them. Like a wine connoisseur. And in this case, he was saying, this one's port. It's the same thing with fur babies, although arguably more heroic because there aren't any laws against euthanizing your dogs. My dogs are rat bastard terriers. Half rat terrier, half the spawn of dog Satan. Dog Satan, by the way, obviously a Scottish terrier. Because of the goatee and the terrier. They regularly piss in our house. They hate everything outside of our family. They hate the sound of doorbells on TV. They hate balloons. They hate other dogs. They hate men wearing hats. They hate every other kind of human, regardless of the headgear they're wearing. They really hate bicycles. Basically, the early years of Dr. Seuss are their arch nemesis. If they see something really dumb, like a guy riding his bike, walking a dog while wearing a hat, they lose their shit. Now, the only reason that they're probably still alive is because my daughter also loves them in a less complicated way. Like, she's beside herself every time we travel without them until they get back from the dog boarder. And I board them out in Kyle, Texas, which is about a 45-minute drive from Austin. Now, if you're hung up on why there's a place called Kyle, Texas, I put some thought into it. I think it's pretty much the same process by which a human gets named Kyle. Like, everybody's so involved in the process and exhausted by the process, and when somebody with a pen and some official paperwork is like, what do you call it? Somebody's like, Kyle? Now, in defense of Kyle, it's not the dumbest named place in Texas. And I get that Texas is ginormous, so you start to run out of options, but some of them are really terrible. And I have a list. There's a Canadian Texas. Yeah, it's home of dubious bacon and really polite tuxedo salesmen. There's a China Texas. I hear they're paying for a lot of tariffs these days. And those two kind of make it seem like they're really trying to sell how big Texas is. But it's nothing compared to Earth, Texas. I have a feeling there's been a lot of alien abductions there because of lazy algorithms and intergalactic map apps. There's a Humble, Texas. Yeah, everything is actual size there. There's a Jolly, Texas. Jolly, Texas. Some bad stuff has definitely gone down in Jolly, Texas. Mobile City, Texas. Disappointingly, consistent with its GPS location. And then there's West Texas. Now, if you call your place something like West Texas, you're just inviting yourself to get stuck in some sort of a who's on first desk type situation. You know, because what's one of the first questions that you get asked when you meet somebody for the first time who really sucks at conversation but might be good at finding lost children? Where are you from? West Texas? Oh, really? What part? 6th Street? But of what city? West Texas. Like west of Amarillo? No, Amarillo Avenue got renamed to Valero Boulevard 2 years ago. Now, you get it. I like to think that there was at least one person in the committee when they were deciding on the name that wasn't having it. Because here's the kicker. It is not in West Texas. Not remotely. You would have to have a map of Texas drawn by a bored toddler and a +4 compass of extreme gerrymandering to ever think it was in West Texas. So this person would be like, we would have accepted north or east or I don't know, northeast. Why don't we just call it Irony, Texas? And then another member of the council was like, we already have a Humble, Texas. And then the leader of the council was so fed up, they're like, all right, well, what do you want to call it? And then the dissenter was like, Kyle? Oh, that's already taken? Yeah, West is fine. Now, let me paint you a picture of Kyle. It's the sticks in between Austin and San Antonio. They say that in the next 10 years, it'll all be one megapolis. But let me tell you, Kyle is in no danger of becoming a suburb soon. I mean, they put on a pretty good highway face. You get there and you're like, oh, stuff's happening. But if you go a mile east or west, you look back and you're like, oh, I get it. This is like the plot of the movie High Plains Drifter. Where that's seen making fun of it in Blazing Saddles. They constructed a cheap facade of a city to fool some bandits. And every time I'm taking the dogs out there, as I'm driving, I indulge this fantasy that I'm just gonna pull off on some country road and abandon my dogs to see if they have it in them to become one of those sensational news stories of a dog that makes its way home by pure instinct. I'm pretty sure that's how they've all happened. The poetry that reads, if you love something, set it free. If it comes back, it was meant to be. Pretty sure that was written about a bad house pet. And before it became a sensational news story, I think the first draft was, if you love something, set it free. If it comes back, damn it. Now, I have to credit my dogs because they have encouraged us to travel more, mostly by plane because we can't take them. When we fly by plane, we fly on the cheap. And does anybody else think it was unreasonable that as the socioeconomic classes became more nuanced, that the airline industries took it upon themselves to reflect that in your flights? Like, gone are the days when upper class and middle class were merely rebranded as first class and coach. Now, that first row of seats that has a few extra inches of legroom, that's upper middle class. If you board just after the rest of coach, that's lower middle class. And they've even introduced a poverty line option, which we found out the last time we flew with United is called Group 5. Last to board, last to onboard, last to get refreshments. Hope you had a backup in mind because they're out of what you wanted. Enjoy your backup sustenance in close proximity to the shitters. Lost your appetite? Too bad. You're going to need the energy it gives you for your gate-to-gate sprint because your connecting flight started boarding a whole minute before we landed. Now on top of that, no carry-ons. You're forced to make do with whatever you can shove into a backpack, like a hitchhiker they took pity on, as opposed to a customer who dropped several $100s for a service. So you land, and you're patiently waiting for everyone to exit so you can run to your plane. And as you're easily making your way down the aisle with your overstuffed backpack, you recall that when you were boarding the plane, there was a dog sitting in its own seat in first class. Goddamn golden retriever probably had a carry-on. It gets worse. We've flown with Frontier, the megabus of the skies. They're like complimentary nothing. They don't have screens for entertainment. They charge you $15 extra if you want to pick your seats. They're like, oh, I guess you don't want to sit with your family, you cheap bastard. Like, they would charge for water and have pay toilets if it was legal. Their flight attendants have the best gig in the entire industry, and they know it. And you can tell from when they make announcements on the intercom. They're like, yeah, we're reaching a cruising altitude. Who gives a damn? So we're going to start beverage service soon. So yeah, go ahead and order a cocktail or a Coke that's more important than your family. It gets better when you fly internationally, even on the cheap for some reason. I don't know why. I think it has something to do with the Geneva Convention. Like, we took a trip a couple of years ago to Amsterdam. It was an amazing experience. But it's also the only time I can recall having immediate buyer's remorse. Like, we got a line on some really cheap airfare. It was only going to be available for 24 hours. And so we went back and forth about it all day, and finally, with minutes to spare, like, let's do it. And so we're like, click, click, click. We're going to Amsterdam. God damn it. We just signed up for 2 10-hour transatlantic flights with a 1-year-old. What is wrong with us? We strongly considered canceling the flights and using the travel vouchers to go somewhere more reasonable, like San Antonio. But we persevered, and in the end, the kid did great, at great emotional and psychological cost to the both of us. Like, it wasn't my wife's first time or my first time flying internationally. We've done it before. There's nothing to those flights. They offer free booze on those flights. So when they come around asking if you want anything, you're like, yeah, we'll both take 2 red wines, keep them coming, and you might want to let your coworkers in Helsinki know that they need to have a couple of wheelchairs handy. Can't fly like that when you have a kid inside of a Dutch CPS office wasn't on our sightseeing agenda. Anyways, we made it there, and we stayed in this really picturesque Dutch farmhouse right on the outskirts of Amsterdam. And they had chickens there, and they told us that we could harvest as many eggs as we wanted every morning. Which, they had about 30 chickens, so I was pretty trepidatious. I don't know if you know this, but chickens are the closest genetic relative to the T-Rex still on Earth. The idea of wading into 30-something tiny T-Rexes to dingo steal some babies seemed only slightly more idiotic than jet-setting a toddler. But we'd already done that, so I kept riding the bad idea train. And not only did they not eat my legs, those were the best eggs I've ever had. They're delicious. So when we got back stateside and eventually decided to stay married, and my wife asked me about whether or not we should get chickens of our own again, I was like, yeah. You could probably characterize our relationship as me dragging my feet through all of her good ideas. So I took leftover materials from other jobs that I also didn't want to do, cherished projects, and I built a chicken coop. And then we found some chickens on Craigslist, and then I found a website that operated like a chicken eugenics Yelp. And we decided on 3 Rhode Island Reds that were a 4.5-star chicken breed. And so when we got there, the farmer only had 2 left. One had died in the night. Probably should have been a Rhode Island Red flag. But we bought the other 2 and an Americana as well, because that was a 4-star rated chicken breed. Plus, we'd already picked out 3 names, which were Ro, Sham, and Bo. Specifically, Ro Van Wade, Sham Wow, and Bo Tiggity. Now, the Americana we named Sham because she was supposed to be a Rhode Island Red. And we couldn't name them any better because of the rock, paper, scissors nature of their pecking order. Like the first alpha was Bo, because the size of scissors doesn't really enter into their efficiency. The next alpha was Ro, because only rock can beat scissors. Sham will never be alpha, because paper should never win that game. In an increasingly digital age, paper is more and more worthless all the time. An update to the classic game, do you know what beats rock? Raccoon. Yeah. They don't even have to be voiced by Bradley Cooper to have a tendency to steal body parts. In this case, Rose crop in her head. Yeah. Further update to the game, do you know what beats raccoon? Crossbow bolts. Yeah, particularly a center of mass one that shoots a raccoon out of a tree like a cartoon. Now, I still haven't seen A Star Is Born, but I did write a song about that piece of shit raccoon. And I'd like to perform it for you. Now, this is a completely original song. It is in no way a lampoon of a famous song by a famous band like the Beatles or something. I don't know why I said that. Now, I was going to do musical accompaniment for this, but because of an instrument technical mix-up, I'm not good at playing musical instruments. So I'm just going to try and describe what it would sound like to you. There's some acoustic guitar and some passive-aggressive harmonica. As you would hear in a song by any group, you know, like the Beatles. Starts off with the acoustic guitar just kind of rolling along. Now somewhere in the woods behind our house there lived a piece of shit rotten raccoon. And one day he took our chickens by surprise. Bit Rose head off with a bite. I didn't like that. Said something like, I'm gonna get that boy. And one day my brother went off and sent me a crossbow from Amazon.com. That rotten raccoon turned a coop into a tomb. Ate a hen, then split like the Dickens. That raccoon came back with more of his pack to pick off the rest of the chickens. The owner, it seemed, was pretty well steamed from losing a girl of his fancy. Her name was Ro. What she called herself, who knows? But everyone knew her as Ro. So he and his clan crept into their land, where the dogs had just been let on furlough. Now, at this point, the harmonica comes in, kind of half rock out. You know, like the harmonica player has some sort of musical Tourette. And it's like trying to hold it back, but he got too into the moment, and then like blues harps his way out into the sun. And like the vocals kind of pause for a minute for him. The casual listener is like, that's the emotional release of this moment called for. While other seasoned harmonica players are like, whoa, that was pure profanity. Kids who play harmonica might hear the song. Did you kiss your other harmonicas with this mouth? Anyway, what was it? Let's see. So the raccoons came back. The dogs are out pissing. They barked at the fence, treated his posse, and then the owner fetched for his crossbow. Now the owner was pretty hot. He aimed and he shot. And the raccoon flew out of the tree like he was in a Robert Rodriguez movie. Yeah! That raccoon is dead.